here for another episode of our Rational Wellness Podcast. It's confusing to know what you're supposed to do to be healthy. What should we be eating? How should we be exercising? Should we be avoiding red meat, cheese, and butter? Should we be putting butter in our coffee? How should we be exercising? Should we be taking calcium supplements, or are calcium supplements harmful? Should we take fish oil? Is fish oil harmful? My goal is to bring clarity to some of these issues using the top scientific research and interviewing experts in the field who can help us understand some of these issues. Please subscribe to the Rational Wellness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. So let's get started on your road to better health.
The hope was so enticing back in the days. Crazy.
Hey, Rational Wellness Podcasters. Thanks for joining us again today. And we've got a great guest here today. We have Debi Silber. She's the Mojo coach and the writer of The Unshakable Woman. And she's here to speak with us about dealing with life crises, and especially with emotional eating and how you, some of the emotional aspects of controlling your weight and getting your diet under control. So, Debi, can you introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are?
Sure. Well, the Mojo Coach is some really old branding, so now I'm just Debi Silber. Happy to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I've created a multi-pronged approach to help people prevent or heal physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually from a life crisis. So what I'm doing is bringing 26 years worth of health and a mindset and empowerment and personal development to just really walking people through that crash and then a full healing. So we don't, and the thing is too, we can crash, or we can either prevent the crash or we can heal from one. And so often, this is where we use or misuse food as a way to numb and distract ourselves. So, we could go there. We could talk about that if you want. Sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. And what kind of educational background do you have that you've gotten into this?
Sure. Well, I'm a dietitian, master's in nutrition, personal trainer, whole health coach, functional diagnostic nutritionist, and now finishing up a PhD program in transpersonal psychology. So
Wow.
The study and science of human potential and transformation. And actually my dissertation I'm working on now is on betrayal trauma and post-traumatic growth. So that's the trauma from people, who hasn't been hurt by the closest people to us, whether that's a parent or a partner or a coworker or a best friend. And these situations really have us feeling, we're never broken. They can have us feel broken and send us into a spiral, and then we become unfit, overweight, overwhelmed, exhausted, unhappy. And the problem is we think we're stuck there. And we're not. Sometimes those are the greatest places to be, because you've been delivered a seed of greatness right there. And if you take that opportunity to heal, you can absolutely transform. That's what my study is on. I've done it myself. And you can even reach a point called post-traumatic growth, where you're in a better position.
Post-traumatic growth. I love that.
Yeah. And that's when you're in a better position because of that crisis. It's not that the pain isn't there. It's not that the hurt isn't there. It's not that it didn't happen. But that crisis showed you something about you, maybe put you on a path to your greatest, to reveal your greatest gifts, maybe had you finally learn a lesson you weren't willing to learn beforehand, and revealed something in you that is just now creates something in you that is just unshakable. That's what my book is about, The Unshakable Woman. And in working with women, I've found there are these main pillars that we really utilize to heal. And health is definitely one of them, so we can talk about that if you'd like, for sure.
Sure. What are the main pillars that women use to heal?
Yeah.
By the way, now we have a new term. We have post-traumatic growth syndrome, PTGS.
Well, at post-traumatic growth, I certainly didn't coin it. Calhoun and Tedeschi did.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But it's a phenomenon, and it's not the opposite of PTSD. It's the growth and it's the, you may have had PTSD symptoms, but it is that upside. I call it the upside of trauma. But I found really these 4 pillars emerging, and this is what helps you get through. So the first is, it's a willingness to change and grow. Nothing changes unless you do. So if you've had a crisis, let's say a divorce, death of a loved one, disease, devastation of some kind, abuse, betrayal, financial crisis, whatever, if you walk out of a situation like that, refusing to do anything differently, like how can you possibly be any different? That door closed and a new door is right there in front of you. And insisting on going about it the same way can only give you the same stuff. So a willingness to change and grow is huge, huge. So I found that's a really big piece. Another one is support. We are so good at doing things ourselves. Oh, we don't need any help. Oh, yes, you do. Sometimes when we crash, you need to see people who've blaze that path, right? Who've revealed something that you didn't see before, or an objective pair of eyes and ears, or the right coach, therapist, healer, friend, family, any kind of support, because you're not at your strongest just yet. You're going to come out of it stronger than ever, but you're not there yet. So that support is huge. You want to do another one? You want to do another one or 2?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sounds good.
So the next one, this is huge. They're all huge. Mindset. I mean, this is unbelievable because, it starts as a thought, right? You have a thought. That's all it is. And then here's an example. Let's say you're a little kid and you have some breaking news to share with your mom, right? And you run into the kitchen and she's on the phone and she gives you one of these, shh, like she shushed you, right? At that very moment, you could have interpreted that as, I'm not important, just because. And now you repeat that, and then you infuse it with some feeling, and now it's an emotion. And then you keep repeating that over and over, and then your mind says, oh, I see. You want me to keep repeating this. No worries. I'm going to slip into your subconscious, become a belief, and I'll just run this program for you all day long. So now you have some version of I'm not important playing, 5, 6, 7,000 times a day. We have something between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. So some version of I'm not important, let's just say, is playing. And if that's what the minimized program you have on your computer, if that's what's running all day long, how could it not impact how you show up? So then that becomes how you think, how you act, how you react, who you become. And it stays with us. So now if you go into a life crisis and now you feel helpless and hopeless and I'm not important, I don't deserve, I'm unworthy, it's going to be that much harder to heal. So there's a way of, and I walk my clients through this, and it's even in the book, how do you find out what these programs are, these thoughts are, these beliefs are, and how do you change them to something that can actually help you heal? And it's just creating this new neural circuitry, and we do it all the time. So that's another one. And then this is going to be your favorite one, health. Think about it. If you go into, let's say it's a physical crisis, and you don't have your health on your side, it's going to be that much harder to heal. Like, for example, and I've been through, a few health crises, but one of them, just adrenal fatigue. How many people have adrenal fatigue? I was in a deep stage of adrenal fatigue, and I was borderline diabetic and insulin resistant. I don't even eat sugar. So imagine if I did, I would have been a full-blown diabetic. So, having your health to start with just helps you heal that much more. If it's a mental and emotional challenge, let's say you're going through a divorce, you're emotionally slammed. And now if you don't have your health on your side, you don't feel good about how you look, that much harder. So these are just main things. Of course, there's a million things within each one, but main things I see to have on your side to help you heal.
And so you accomplish these things by changing mindset and psychological counseling. Is that the sense? Absolutely.
There are so many things we can do to help. And of course, it's not a race. Some people, this happens much quicker. Some people, it takes a longer amount of time. The idea is, especially if the intention is growth, if the intention is healing, resilience, post-traumatic growth, like we said, it's making your story not your life story, but making it a part of your story. And there are definitely ways to do that. And you do, once you've gone through all these different ways to heal, you actually can look at that crisis and say, you know what? That was one of the best things that ever happened. Now, you'll never see that as you're going through it. But I mean, I have clients now, they're grateful they went through that messy divorce because now they're with their soulmate, or they're grateful they lost their job because they're doing the work they love, or they're grateful they got that disease because now they have a love and appreciation for life they never would have had that not happen. So it happens. That's on the other side of trauma.
That's great. I do a lot of work on the functional medicine side of my practice with weight loss. And, a lot of times the emotional aspect of the weight loss is something I don't have a good hand on. I try to approach it from physical concept using blood sugar control and managing hormones and insulin and all that. But, I know you recently had a blog post on emotional eating. What are some of the things that we can do if we're trying to get control of our eating and it's based on emotions rather than what somebody's telling us to do?
Right. And you know what? We have very often a dysfunctional relationship with food, and food and emotions are so intertwined, we can barely tell them apart. Emotional eating is really when we're looking to soothe, calm, numb, relax from our problems or our pain. We're self-soothing, and food is just our drug of choice. I mean, that's really what's going on here. So one of the things is we're always berating ourselves for a binge. You're binging for a reason. And we're stuffing ourselves to stuff the feelings. So one of the best questions you can ask yourself is, what am I really hungry for? Is it that, what are you trying to stuff yourself so you don't feel? Is it a conversation you need to have with your partner? Is it that you really hate your job? Is it a health issue you're avoiding? What's the reason why you're doing that? What are the painful emotions that you're trying to keep, so desperately trying to keep suppressed? I've worked with so many emotional leaders. I've been doing this 26 years. And one of the things I always see is when they do stop, and you can, and I see it. I've helped hundreds of emotional leaders stop emotional eating. I used to do it myself. Very often, you start having intense emotions, weird dreams. Stuff starts coming up, and that can freak people out. And they say, oh my gosh, what's this? This is scary. This is new. This is unfamiliar. And they go back to the eating. When you're having those kind of responses and those kind of reactions, all that stuff you've been stuffing is finally having a chance to come up. That's good. That's a sign of success. That's a sign of progress. So work with the right practitioner to help you through that stuff. But that's huge, and a big thing is also, so often we're stuffing ourselves to stuff that uncomfortable feeling. But the healing happens when you feed the real need. Like, here's an example. One woman I was working with, she was emotionally eating, and we just uncovered she had a real need for community service, right? And so I got her involved in community service. The weight just started falling off of her. Now, it's a really backwards way to weight loss, but it works. When you feed what you're really hungry for, there's no need to emotionally eat.
So on both ends, as a patient, how do you know what it is that you're really emotionally, what is it that you really need? How do you know what it is that you really need? Because you're covering it up and you're using food. And then as a practitioner who's working with somebody on a weight loss program, and they come in and they, they're either lying to you about what they're eating, or they don't know. How come you haven't exercised? How come, you ate the extra, carbs or whatever it is, and they don't know. How do you get to the bottom of that? How do you get that out of women?
There are so many different. Yeah, sure. There are so many different places to look. I mean, the most obvious is food, because very often we'll have there'll be a sugar addiction, or there'll just be just habits or just a lack of awareness, and the food changes can really help in that way. But I know.
But let's say you've already given them advice on food changes and exercise, and they're just not following it. And
Right.
you've got to figure out why are they sabotaging themselves?
Yeah. So I'll go there first just because it's the easiest.
Yeah.
And then I'll start taking a look at other and I know the places to look. So I'll touch on something like relationships. And very often I'll get the deer in the headlights look right there, because it could be something like, here's an example. I was working with a woman who, I talked about this in my TEDx talk about sabotage, but she's losing weight. And I know when someone's eating beautifully and they should be losing weight, and there was a stop, and I knew something was going on. Well, what happened was she realized, if I lose this weight, I'm forced to face the fact that I'm no longer in love with my husband. That's big. It's too confronting. It's too overwhelming. So it's easier just to sabotage ourselves. Go back to what we know, what's familiar and comfortable, even if it stinks. Because
how did you get that out of her?
I guess it's being just an intuitive coach, or just knowing the questions to ask. But I'll go through a series of, I'll start with food because it's the least emotional. It's easier to say, pack a healthy lunch than ditch your husband.
Sure.
So we'll go there first. But I'll know, by just, I ask a lot of questions, and I'm looking, and I'm feeling, and I've worked with thousands of people over the last 26 years. So you kind of get a feel for it, but I'll get a sense if it has something to do with something other than food. And usually it does. And this is amazing too. I've seen this countless times where sometimes someone, and I know that they're eating well, and I know when they're telling the truth and when they're not. And let's say they really are, and they're not losing. That's another thing. Like, there was a woman I was working with, and she's this was a group program I had, and everybody was losing, 5 to 8 pounds the first week, steady 2 after that. And she wasn't. Sure enough, after a couple of weeks, she said, "Deb, you know what? I'm really having some hard time, a challenge with my husband. I want to take a few weeks off." I'm like, "I get it, no problem." She takes off. I speak to her a month later, and she sounded great. And I was like, "What's going on?" She said, "Debbie, the weirdest thing." She goes, "First of all, everything worked out with my husband." She goes, "But the craziest thing, I didn't change my food one iota. I dropped 7 pounds this month." The body is protecting us. When we're under extreme stress, body's like, "Listen, I'm not going to sit." A lot of times, I don't care how well you're eating, I'm going to protect you. When the protection isn't needed, the weight just goes. The body's brilliant. The body's brilliant. And I see this all the time, where there's some sort of hold, there's some sort of hard stop. Because think about what happens when you're distracting yourself through food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy. You got that going. You think it's all in place. You're doing a great job at desperately distracting yourself, right? But the minute you stop and take a look, you have set a cascade of emotions into effect. The first thing is, you're going to start asking yourself a ton of questions. What do I, like, let's say you decide to face that health issue. What does this mean? What is it going to mean to my job? What about my insurance? What about my family, right? With that comes a lot of questions. How will I manage this? How can I do this? And with that, a lot of fear. So it's easier just to keep numbing and distracting so we don't have to look. And we do that until we can't.
Are there any questionnaires that can be utilized that are helpful in getting to the root of some of these issues?
Oh, definitely. And I ask a series of questions in The Unshakable Woman, and in The Unshakable Woman, I have a workbook, which is the companion guide.
Okay.
And I can share them with your audience too. These are very revealing questions. And if you don't want to answer them, that's your tip that you need to. Right. So I would say first, the first question is, are you numbing and distracting yourself? Are you using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, or some other?
But I would imagine most people would say, no, of course I'm not.
You know what? Do this by yourself when you have some time to just be alone. And if you walk into a room and the first thing you do is put the TV on, if you walk into your house and you're like, I got to go for a drive, for a run, for whatever. If you, the minute you have any free time, you find yourself reaching in the cabinets, there's a clue. You can figure that out. And then the next question would be, what am I distracting myself from? In other words, what am I pretending not to see? This is a hard question. Am I pretending to see that I don't feel that lump? Am I pretending to see that my marriage is okay? Am I pretending to see that my job is okay? Like what's going on there, right? And the next thing is, what price am I paying to keep the peace? What's the price I'm paying? Am I living in a miserable marriage? Am I putting all my dreams on hold because I'm just doing the work that I'm not uniquely called to do? And then the next question is, how will life look in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? How will life look? If I keep this same thing going, what's 5, 10 years going to look like? And then the last one, how could life look in 5 to 10 years if I make the changes now?
Great. And so that's available in your Unshakable Woman workbook?
It's in the Unshakable Woman and the Unshakable Woman workbook right here.
Okay. Available through Amazon?
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. Also
Absolutely.
through Barnes & Noble, etc.?
Amazon is just,
Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. When did you publish that book?
I just published the book in March and the workbook in June.
Oh, great.
Quick, because it was just, I realized, what, a lot of people, the book is meant to be a short read, quick read, because we're busy. But the workbook is really, if you want to dive in deeper. I mean, and that's what, if, on my site, debisilber.com, the coaching programs I have, it's all based on the work within the workbook and the book. I mean, because these are just, we don't realize, when we're preventing a crash or when we're in a position to heal from one, we think we're stuck. We think there's no option. But there is. And that actually can lead to your best place ever. Your biggest crisis can reveal your greatest gift. And it's my intention to help as many people through that as possible.
That's great. I was looking at one of your blog posts and you were talking about the 100% rule. And that's where somebody says, you know what, 100%, there's no way I'm going to not have any bread or I'm not going to have any pasta or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hear over and over again, a lot of people saying, if you try to be too strict on people or you try to be too strict on yourself, you'll sabotage yourself. So, 80% rule, as long as you eat good 80% at a time, that's better, less, emotionally burdensome than to beat yourself up if you have, if you break it once. But you find the 100% rule works better.
I disagree. I really feel like when you close the door to something, it's no longer an option. That frees up a lot of headspace. I found in doing it every which way and having thousands of clients try it every which way, there's something easier about just saying, you know what, it's just no longer in my life. Like if you knew you had a piece of bread and, you had some horrific reaction right there, it just wouldn't be a part of your life. It just wouldn't. You'd be like, I don't want to have that response. No way. But because it's subtle and because it's slower, not that it's not happening, it's just showing over time. You don't look at it like it's an issue. So I kind of look at it and say, why navigate and negotiate and make deals with yourself like, oh, I could have it on Tuesdays and at birthdays. And think about it like this, that food has so much power over you that it's prevented you from wearing the clothes you want, from being spontaneous, from speaking up, from putting yourself in situations, right? Because you're tripped up about the way you look and feel. We only have 100% of our energy at any given time. If 80% of that is being used, like if I'm spending 80% of my time with you right now, and 20% is, oh my gosh, is this sticking out? Is this showing? Do I look fat? You know what I mean? I only have the rest to be with you, right? But if instead I've ruled out certain foods because they've had so much power over me for decades, let me just do what I need to so I can be present. Fully present. People look at it and say, oh, well, I'll be so deprived if I can't have that food. You know what? I think you've been depriving yourself of way more by eating it, right? I mean, you've been depriving yourself from living the way you want to, from feeling the way you want to. You tell me a food that tastes as good as that. There is none. I mean,
I wonder if it has something to do with the person and their mindset. Because I'm like you. I just make a rule. That's it. I'll never do it. Why would anybody do that? But I've been at enough dinners where, somebody brought out something and said, hey, why don't you have this? And, when I was about to say, are you kidding? I'd never eat that. And have my wife kick me in the leg and say, don't say that. And tell me that, most people are not going to be that strict. And if you're that strict, you're just not going to connect with them.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'm not strict about everything. I'm really not. I mean, I have chocolate every day. It's whatever rule makes sense for you.
Yeah.
But I have freed up so much mental space that I just didn't have the bandwidth for by eliminating that wrestle with that food. It's not worth it. And I feel so much better without it in my life. And what I'll do with clients is I'll have them eat so cleanly, get them so to the place where they physically feel so good. I don't have to say a word. They go off on some big binge. They will feel like they got hit by a truck. And there is nothing I have to say. After that, they'll say, wow, you know what? That is so not worth it. I'm not doing that again. But they've become so desensitized because they've been eating a certain way for so long. But when your body gets used to that and starts feeling, performing better, you don't want to include those things in because it slows you down. It makes you sluggish. It makes you not feel well. It makes you not show up powerfully. It's not just about looking good in your skinny jeans. It's what does it allow you to do? Who does it allow you to become? How does it allow you to show up? That's the reason why my clients, why I have them work on their health. It's not about looking good. I mean, that's a byproduct. It's what does it allow for them?
I'm like you. I like to just make a rule and I don't have to think about it and I can use my energy for something else. But it seems it's much more common. A lot of other nutrition coaches and nutritionists and doctors involved in nutrition will do things like say, okay, 1 meal a week, have whatever you want. And that, allows you to not feel like you're being, punished by never eating some food that you're depriving yourself of.
See, and to me, that's a diet mentality. That to me feels like it's so horrible, all your other meals, that I'm going to give you one meal that you could just go nuts so you could forget about everything else you did, and then you're able to go back to it. That's diet and binge. That's all or nothing, good, bad, black, white. I just don't go for that. I just feel like there's got to be some room and some flexibility, yes, but certain things should be non-negotiable. And anything where it's like those cheat days, I hate that word. Cheat day. Why do you have a need to cheat? You only have a need to cheat if you are so miserable and you feel so restricted. I don't put anybody on a diet. I mean, the way I have them eat, it's truly the way the people who've lost 100 plus pounds, the people who've lost 5 pounds, the way I eat every single day. It's whole, real, nutrient dense food. We're just getting rid of the foods that cause inflammation, weight gain, brain fog. That's it.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same path with you. I looked at one of your other blog posts and you were talking about finding your life purpose or passion. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people don't know what their life purpose or passion is. And then, lately there's been a trend where everybody seems to have the same life purpose or passion. I'm being a little bit of a skeptic right now because I have a background in philosophy, but I'm fond of saying, my purpose is to create value for others. And I'm hearing everybody in the success world, my purpose is to help everybody. My purpose is to create value in others. Is that too easy? Do you just say, well, I want to help everybody and that's my life purpose? And is that, I wonder if that's just a gimmick.
Well, I don't know if it's a gimmick. Here's what I would say. I said,
by the way, that's what I'm saying these days too. Right. So I'm questioning myself.
No, I think it ultimately all comes down to service, but how we provide that service for all the people that need it, that's where our individual life purpose lies. So the big overarching theme is service, but the way, your life purpose may be serving in the way that you're uniquely qualified to do. My unique purpose is because of my traumas, because of my healings, because of my discoveries, I've created a program, a predictable formula, a proven process. So that's my purpose now, to help these women heal from these life crises. Every single person, everyone, no one is excluded, has a unique gift, talent, strength, calling. There is something they do that no one on the planet does like them. Now, whether they use that to just, have a fun hobby, to help their friends, to create and make a brilliant business out of it is entirely up to them. But when you tap into that, and very often you find it, you don't find it through the easy stuff. You find it after that challenge. When you take that and grow that and nurture that, to me, that's your purpose.
So how does somebody find their purpose or passion?
Yeah, I would say it's very often it's something, someone says something like, oh, wow, you're so good at that. It comes so easy to you. Like maybe you're a natural connector, or you just have a way of smoothing out a situation and having opposing sides get along. You're a great mediator. Or maybe you've healed from something, of maybe a physical challenge, and you're saying, I will never let someone go through that pain. Or maybe you watch someone suffer and you didn't like how they were treated through, let's say, conventional medicine, and you said, you know what, no, that won't happen again. No one's going to go through that pain. So it's typically through your own experience and your own innate gifts. And it's something that lights you up. It's something that you can just do all day. No one has to teach it to you. Like when I'm speaking or when I'm coaching, it doesn't feel like work. It's what I'm here to do, or when I'm writing. But when I'm doing something that is not in line with what I'm here for, it's hard. It's painful. It just is, So when there's that sense of ease, when there's that flow, when it feels effortless, it's because you're doing what you're here to do.
That's great. So I think we've had an interesting conversation. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to bring to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, sure. I would say every single decision you make, whether it's the food you put in your mouth, whether it's the words that come out of your mouth, whether it's, what you think, what you do, the way you act, react, behave, can only take you one of two ways: further or closer to the body, health, lifestyle you want. So if you do no more than say, I'm going to be mindful and make the decision as often as I can to make decisions that bring me closer to what I want, that's a home run. Beautiful.
Awesome. Beautiful, Debi. So once again, I know you gave your website, but for people who'd like to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, great. Thanks. It's debisilber.com. So DEBI, S like Sam, IL, B like boy, ER.com. debisilber.com.
Great. And get her book today. It's a great book.
Thank you so much.
I'll catch up with you in the future, Deb. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.